Let's make a scrappy knit scrunchie. This is super beginner friendly, just 2 stitches I'm going to show you, and hold your hand the whole way. You can do as many colors as you want, so it's a great way to use scraps and just turns out in a super fluffy, cute shape. This pattern was originally published in the Q2 2024 issue of Material Girls magazine, which is free to download. The link is in the description. There are a bunch of other knitting and crochet patterns in there, also a sewing pattern, some fun activities, interviews, loads of fiber arts fun, always free on materialgirls.com, so make sure to check it out. For this pattern, I'm going to be using 2 strands of lace weight yarn held together. So this is size 0 yarn. I'm using mohair along with 5mm knitting needles, a hair elastic, which we will build the scrunchie around, and a tapestry needle to do some seaming. Plus all the classic materials from your knitting toolkit. So just some scissors and a measuring tape as well. We're going to do a basic long tail cast on, but we want to have quite a long tail so that we can use it to seam later, not have to attach different yarn. You'll thank me then. So measure out 10 inches, then place that 10-inch mark on your needle, and to figure out the rest of our tail, we're going to wrap our yarn around 25 times. This is my little trick to make sure that your tail is never too short for the number of cast-ons you need. So I wrap it around 25 times, and when I hit that, that's approximately the place where I should make my slip knot. To make a basic slip knot, cross your yarn over itself and pull a loop up. We're going to place this onto our needle and begin long tail casting on by taking our tail, which is not connected to a ball of yarn, it's quite long, and wrapping it around our thumb like so, placing your needle underneath, wrapping the yarn that's attached to your ball around it, and then flipping that loop over. So we're going under, wrapping around, and looping over. We're going to do that 25 times, and this will make 25 stitches casted on. All you need to know how to do to make the scrunchie is to knit and to purl. I'm going to give you a little run through them. So on our first row, we're going to be knitting. Insert your needle from left to right into your first stitch, wrap your working yarn around it, pull it off, and pull that stitch off. So we're going into the stitch, wrapping our yarn around, pulling it out and off the needle. We're going to do this over and over across the entire row into each stitch, and it'll look like this. Then we're going to flip it around, so we're switching hands, and we're going to purl the next row. To purl, insert your needle from right to left, and then wrap your yarn around at the front, pull your needle backwards, and that stitch off. So it's just a backwards knit stitch. So we're going right to left in, wrapping the yarn around, pulling the stitch off. We're going to continue doing that into every stitch across this row, and you will have finished 2 rows of stockinette stitch. Time for a color change. So cut that yarn off, grab the next color, and just drape it over your needle as you're knitting into the next row. We're going to do knit stitches across this entire row. You don't really have to do anything to connect the yarn because you're starting it on a new row, not mid-row. Just drape it over, start going, and this is what it will look like when you have finished 1 row. Again, switch hands, and we're going to do purl on this next row. Just a basic purl stitch into every stitch across the row, and you'll have finished 2 stockinette rows in this color as well. Now, again, we're going to cut it off and switch colors. So we're going to be switching every 2 rows, alternating between knit rows and purl rows. You can do as few or as many colors as you want. I'm doing 4, but if you wanted to do 2 and just switch every 2 rows, that could be a fun every other stripe moment. You could do 10 different colors, use up all your scraps, and it would just be a crazy cool scrunchie. Just change every 2 rows, no matter how many colors that you're doing, and always alternate between knit and purl rows. This is called the stockinette stitch when you do them in that order. Keep going until you have made 66 rows total. Here you can see I'm really building mine up. Don't worry about all these ends. We will deal with them later. Make sure that your last rows are the same colors as your first one. So my 65th and 66th row are pink because my first 2 rows were pink, and this will just make it really seamless when we seam it all up. Now we're going to do a basic cast off. So knit your first stitch, knit your second stitch, and then we're going to pass the right stitch over the left stitch like so. You've cast that stitch off. Knit another stitch, and then take the right stitch over the left stitch. We're going to keep doing this over and over again, knitting 1 stitch and then passing the right one over the left one to cast it off. You can see how that's going to look here. When you get to the last one, you're going to pass it over 1 more time, then pull a bit of that loop out. We want another long tail here for seaming, so before you cut it, measure about 25 inches on your tail and cut it at that point. Lots of ends on this project, but don't worry, I'm not going to make you weave each one in. We'll talk about that in a second, but just kind of brush them so that they look nice because we're about to seam this all up and we want to make sure they stay nice inside the scrunchie. scrunchie. Fold one short edge over to touch the other short edge, and we're going to use our cast on tail, so the shorter 10-inch one, to seam this up. We're going to be using the horizontal invisible seam technique. So grab a tapestry needle, take the end of your yarn through there, and it is already connected to one edge of your fabric. You're welcome. Then we're going to go over to the other side that it's not connected to, find a V from the stitches and put our needle underneath it and pull it through. Here's another look at that. We're going back to the right side here because we're going to go back every other, finding this V, putting it underneath both sides of the stitch and pulling it through. Let's look at that one more time because I know sometimes they're kind of hard to see. I'm finding a V in my stitches, putting my needle underneath both sides and pulling it through, alternating between doing this on the right side and the left side. This is what it looks like when it seams up. See how seamless that is because we started and ended with the same color. As you keep going, doing the same pattern over and over, back and forth, you're just going to do the last stitch and then weave in this end on the back side. All that means is that we're going to put our needle under a few stitches and pull the yarn through so that it isn't hanging out on the outside and it can't come undone easily. When you feel like that's nice and secure, you can bring your scissors over and cut that yarn right up close to the fabric. This is what this finished seam looks like for me. Now it's time to get our hair tie in there. So turn the entire scrunchie wrong side out. Again, we have all of these ends and I'm just going to kind of brush them down because now's our moment to hide them, okay? Grab your hair tie and you're going to put it over the entire tube that you've got going here. So kind of scrunch it up and then pull it over. I do it in the direction of the ends that haven't been woven in so that it just kind of holds them down. And we're going to fold it over itself so that the long edges touch. And here you'll be able to see the scrunchie shape start to form, and we're going to seam it all up. If you would find this helpful, you can grab some safety pins, line up the colors from either side, and then pin them in place so that it's a little easier to see where you're going and get things matched up perfectly as you seam. This is what mine looks like when I've done that all the way around. Grab your 25-inch cast off tail and put it through the eye of your tapestry needle. Again, you're welcome. It's already connected to one side because I thought ahead. We're going to be doing the vertical invisible seam technique to seam this up. So find a bar that's between two columns of stitches like this, and you're going to pull your entire thread underneath it, starting on the side that's away from where it is already connected. So again, we're going back and forth since we were just on the right. Now we're going to go over to the left, find a bar that's between two columns of stitches and pull it through. Now back to the right side. We're going to continue doing this back and forth, and the key is that you want to try to do it each time in the same column of stitches, and that's what's going to make it look really seamless. You'll see that this is invisible, so as you pull it through, it doesn't matter that I'm using thread that's a different color, you're not going to see it. I'm continuing to go back and forth, just taking out the safety pins as I reach them. You can see it's creating a super seamless seam. Continue going around the entire scrunchie to seam up to the last hole, and then we're going to have to weave in the ends on the outside this time just because we can't get to the inside, which is fine. So again, go underneath a few stitches until you feel like it's secure, grab your scissors, and then cut very close to the fabric. You have a seamless seam, you have a beautiful scrunchie. It's all finished, it's very fluffy. I like putting it over something just like this to make it super big, but you can also kind of twist it around, which I think has a cool multicolor striped look as well. If you liked this tutorial, then you'll love everything we're doing on materialgirls.com. These are all free knitting patterns that are also available on there, so make sure to go check them out. We've got a magazine, we've got a group chat, we've got events, we've got everything fun fiber art going on. So thanks so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and have a wonderful day.